Hey, folks. All right. This week on the podcast, we sit down with our friend Scott Armstrong, who is an expat living in Dubai. And he is the founder of Mentl and the founder of the Mentl Awards. Now, you might recognize the name Mentl or the Mentl Awards because we had a guest on recently, your friend Adel, who was the recipient of the Mentl Award last year. Scott's work is deeply invested in mental health advocacy, and also he is a podcast host himself. And we had a absolutely lovely conversation with him about his experience in navigating mental health from navigating mental health within his family growing up to navigating his own mental health as he is now a father. And it's a beautiful conversation. We really appreciate Scott for being so vulnerable and so open to chat with us about all things mental health, and especially coming from the UAE, a very, very interesting perspective. So shout out to Scott. Stick around for the end of the episode. Brian and I dive into an unfortunate story that came out of the news, considering it's the summertime and it's very hot. And we heard about a story of a man who got a little ouchie on his feet because he burned them walking through the desert. So stick around if you want to hear that. Okay, enjoy, folks. Without further ado, this is our chat with our friend Scott Armstrong. Well, let's dive right into it. Man, I mean, if you've been listening for the last little bit, we've been kind of having a lot of fun speaking with folks from the UAE, and a lot of these conversations we've been having have been coming from the standpoint of mental health. We had a lovely conversation with our new friend Adel about his advocacy work in spreading awareness to mental health issues in the UAE, and we spoke with our friend Anna Lopez about her harrowing experience with domestic violence, and today we are very grateful to be joined by a new friend, Scott Armstrong.
Who's a dog?
He's a dog, yes. So thank you, Scott, for...
I can throw my voice. It's amazing. Of course, as soon as the podcast beginning, the doorbell goes and the dog goes mad. Obviously. Can't get more authentic than that.
I love it.
So, Scott...
it's actually interesting because Scott, I mean, you just spoke about Adel and Anna Lopez. And
yes.
Both of them we found through Scott's work with Mentl.
That's right.
Both of them were Mentl Award winners.
That's right.
Last year.
So Mentl, Mentl. Scott is the founder of Mentl. So I guess to kick this all off, Scott, first, just introduce yourself to the two of us and to all of our listeners, but also give us some insight into Mentl, what it is, how it started, what's the purpose?
Good question. I'm on that journey already. Okay, so Scott Armstrong. I was primarily a journalist since 16 years old, and worked in journalism all my life. Always tried to be a campaigning journalism, always tried to make a difference. And then I kind of started on a mental health journey about 4 or 5 years ago after I lost my father through depression. He was a very strong man. He was a typical guy from the 70s that didn't talk about their feelings. And kind of like when I lost him, that opened up a whole bunch of questions about myself. Started unpacking quite a lot of trauma that was in my past, and just kind of I was hitting 50. I was a little bit tired of traditional media because it's so polarized. I didn't really feel like it was making much of a difference. And it's one of those things like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So there was kind of like my dad's story. There was my emerging / growing understanding of my mental health, and then I've got kids, and they're growing up in a really complicated world, and I just thought got to try and do something to move the needle on mental health and perhaps use those evil journalism skills for good.
I journalist since 16. That's that's fascinating. What was, like what a young buck, Scott, walking around in, I take it, the UK,
Yeah.
What propelled you into journalism at that age, and like what
necessity?
Was that like? Yeah, okay.
Necessity. No, I mean, about like the only thing I was ever really any good at was writing when I was a kid. I came from a kind of broken home. By the time I was a teenager, I was kind of, the family had broken up. I'd been kicked out of home. I was couch surfing. Occasionally, I was like sleeping on the streets because it was warmer than squatting in a flat. And I don't know how I fell into it, but I kind of managed to fall into it. Age 16, the wage that was being paid then terrifies me now, but at the time it was an absolute luxury.
Yeah.
And from there I spent the first, I spent many good years in journalism. But it is increasingly just kind of a very toxic profession these days. And there's a lot of people in there who are deeply insecure. There's a lot of people that are suffering from toxic cultures. And I think kind of the output is a product of what's happening on the inside of the organizations.
I worked, I did a bit of consulting work with a local news organization here.
That's right.
And specifically focusing on doing a project around mental health for journalists. And one of the things that I found fascinating, probably the most profound thing that came out of the bit of research that we were doing, was that when journalism shifted to being mainly digital and online, it was like, that's where the comment section was born. And the comments, I mean, I'm not sure if anybody's spent much time in a comment section lately, but it's just total fucking garbage. And a lot of that anger that was in those comment sections was directed at the journalists. And so you used to have journalists who were like, seen as a sort of like heroes in their towns, like, doing this like great, social work to hold the powers that be to account in the city or in the country. And journalism is really essential for a good democratic society, at least. And all of a sudden these people who, were doing this like very just thing are now all of a sudden the target for like a bunch of shitty comments, and I imagine that could be really difficult.
Well, there's a huge problem. I don't know why it specifically is, but there's a huge population of deeply insecure people, like journalists. I mean, it's bad enough, and it's kind of hard enough in a way because you write something and then you put it out. So, like any artist, I'm not saying, like any creative, shall we say? You write something, you do a piece of work, and then you put it out for it to be judged. And in the olden days, and I can talk about the olden days because I'm over 50, you'd be judged on whether people picked up the paper and bought it. They judge it on the front page and whether or not they thought it was interesting. You'd judge it on the feedback you get. But now, as you say, it's just like it's a sewer. But it's no different. The comment section is no different to X or Twitter.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So again, I feel for people in journalism, particularly in local journalism. I spent a lot of my career in local journalism, where actually, do you know what? You can't shit on your doorstep. Whereas a lot of the national, media can basically just, they're there literally for the clicks. But local journalism, you do try to do the local campaigns. You do try to, raise money for people that need it. You do try to, as you say, like, we changed the law in the UK to change, to protect children from kidnappers. We managed to close a loophole in the law. I was invited down to 10 Downing Street by Tony Blair, the then Prime Minister, because we, as a local paper, managed to get thousands of people back into work. So local journalists do really good work, but it's just the business model is buggered up by social media. There's no time these days, so it's a difficult space to be. I recall myself, and I'll quote a friend, Anna, who she started it off for me, which is called, "I'm a recovering journalist."
You know what I think? Maybe I'm wrong here, but I have a sneaky suspicion that there was a very particular time, a very particular year when journalism might have there was an incident where it might have kind of tanked the prestige and sort of importance of journalism, especially in the UK, actually, in particular the UK. It was in 2015. The Sun decided that it was time to no longer show boobs on page 3 in every paper. And I think that's pretty much the downfall right there. That was the start of the end. Brian, are you aware of this? Did you know that one of the most popular papers in the UK?
Was it what was it? The Sunshine Girl?
I don't know if there was a name. Was there a name for it?
It was page 3. It was page 3. I will say, as a father of an 8-year-old girl and someone that regularly talks about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I can only applaud that paper's decision.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Like one of the most popular newspapers on the third page, just a topless woman.
Actually?
Yes. No, I'm not even fucking joking.
No,
Brian.
genuinely. So
in 2015,
we used to talk about the gutter press, and it literally was the kind of the gutter press.
Yeah.
Up until
to be fair,
up until 2015. Yeah, it was something like 70 years or something where it was happening, maybe 45 years.
They did try a bit of diversity and equity and inclusion by then bringing along the page 7 fella. But that wasn't quite didn't quite go down so well with the demographics. So
was his dick out?
No.
Just a hog on page 7. You got
Wow.
Oh my God! Speaking of tangents, Scott, you opened this up
back to mental health.
Yeah.
You opened it up by expressing how your father's depression kind of played a role in opening your eyes and your mind up to the importance of mental health and also your own traumas and your own past struggles. Can you tell us a little bit about your dad and a little bit about his at least from as a son, what your sort of what your experience was in having a father and watching your father struggle with depression?
And that's the interesting thing is like I didn't get to see him struggle with depression, and he couldn't open up. It's an interest. Cue the violins, but I grew up in a very angry household, and my dad was a very angry man. But he was but I kind of understood. And one of the last conversations we had, when the last time I saw him, I began to realize why he was so angry. Like his father used to, he grew up around domestic violence. He used to watch his father. He had to stand up to his father, age, I think 14, 15, and basically threatened to kill him if he didn't leave his mum alone. He also grew up in what we call a sink estate in the UK. So one of the poorest places, a place called Bestwood, which was ironic because it was the shittest place in the city he was in, and there were no trees. So he kind of, but he was super intelligent. He was very driven. He was super intelligent. He kind of got a scholarship to one of the better schools, one of the best schools in the city. There, he then kind of grew up with a lot of class discrimination. So he basically spent every day of his life throwing his fists around. And that's how he dealt with class prejudice. He punched it in the face. So he grew up in an angry man. As a child, I was terrified of him. We later on in life we established a good relationship, and he is still he was my father. He was a lot happier second time round. The first marriage with my mother didn't work out so well for anyone really. The second time around he was a lot calmer. But that said, I was away working in Dubai, and it's a pressure that lots of expats have. So I could only really ever speak to him pretty frequently on the phone. But he could not open up to me about what he was going through. In fact, it took over, it was over a year after he died, because I knew he spiraled into alcoholism and he drank himself to death in 3 months. And there were some reasons why he did it. He was an idiot, basically. He kind of, being such a hard man, he went in and had a double knee operation, and then walked out the next day. Was in tremendous pain. Wow. Couldn't take painkillers because he'd seen his mum get addicted to painkillers, and that addled her brain. So then just turned to alcohol to kind of numb the pain, and then it just got hold of him. But it took a year for me to find out that actually he was already diagnosed and struggling with depression. So it was funny just looking down, at his body in the open casket and kind of like talking to him, but knowing he's not there. Just so kind of talking to myself going, why did we not talk about this stuff? And it was kind of basically, I was kind of talking to myself. Why don't I talk?
Are you a dad?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the reason I ask is because is it epigenetics? That's where like, you know, the like we know, like I know that there's science out there just to speak to the fact that trauma, it can be passed down from generation to generation, and oftentimes, you know, when like I'm thinking about having a kid for the first time, and I think back to my upbringing with my father, and you know, my dad also from a similar generation where like speaking about issues was kind of a hard thing, almost like an impossible thing for his generation, and especially from like geographically, like where he came from. And so like I can't help but think about, you know, if I have a kid, like what are the things I don't want to do to fuck up my kid the way that my dad maybe did to fuck me up. And so I guess like, you know, as a father and as a father that's come from a father who's struggled with that sort of generational trauma, you know, how has that sort of played a role in the way that you've approached rearing a child and the way that maybe you see yourself show up as a dad?
Well, I will say, like the last 5 years, I think probably have been transformative for me, even as a parent. Not even that, like because my daughter's 8, but my son, I've got two boys. You know, one's 22, one's nearly 18. I have tried to be less angry than my father. I think I've in large part succeeded, but not always. And as I've grown more and more acutely aware of his story over the last sort of 5 years, and also my story, I've definitely become better. And actually launching Mentl, and like we say, you talked about Adel and Anna at the awards last year. My daughter was, at the awards. She presented some of the trophies, wow. and to be able to, and I would say to you as well, in fact, you're doing this podcast. For her to be able to see a room full of people celebrating empathy, compassion, and kindness, for me was just like heart exploding. So that certainly helped. It's also, I'm learning all the time, and I haven't really spoken about this on podcasts yet. I haven't really spoken about this on my podcast or at all. But I've been in therapy since, particularly since I launched this business. It kind of like it brought some things very, very, very much up to the surface. And one of the things that it brought up in the sort of the past year, and I'm currently going through therapy for it as well, was that I was abused as a child by a school teacher, and that got buried for a very, 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 very long time. I was 7 or 8 years old, but I kind of lived with a lot of my life in shame, ashamed of myself. I didn't speak up at the time because I didn't need to, because some other kids spoke up and the teacher in question got kicked out and all that kind of thing. But then I basically thought that I was a coward most of my life for not speaking out. And I couldn't talk to my parents because of the anger, because of the shouting, because of the fear. I didn't have anybody that I could turn to talk to about that. So that now makes me, I am sort of hyper around particularly now that I've kind of, this is like the last literally year, this has all really come crashing back, with flashbacks and with being able to kind of picture the guy's face and all that kind of thing. But then hyper around, and it was interesting because one of the therapists I saw was obviously like, these monsters kind of know that you are from a background that you're not going to speak. So I'm very, very conscious as a parent that I always want that conversation to be there. And I don't want there to be fear. I want there to be love. And if you get that one right, I think you're probably a long way down the road. And I was brought up in fear. And my oldest boy would probably tell you that it took me a while to actually kind of calm down. He's my stepson, but he's my son. And emotionally, in my heart, everything. And I think I'm his dad, 1,000,000%. But yeah, it took me a while to kind of get over that. from my father, that angry parenting, you must do as you're told. So, basically my daughter now calls me her butler. And that's not far from the truth, frankly. While trying to teach her some important lessons, I basically do as I'm told,
Yeah.
It's I think one of the most interesting things I learned from Gabor Mate was this idea that as a parent, creating that space where your kids can come to you when they're hurt or when they're scared or when they need something is like the most important thing. And I think a lot about that because I think in a lot of ways I didn't have that too as a kid. And it's really hard for parents to create that space. But then the contrasting part to that is like when you don't create that space, like your experience, you then sort of internalize that as if, you're a coward when really like, the issue wasn't the fact that you didn't have the courage to come out in that situation and tell it. It's that your parents didn't create that space for love, which, makes me think back to my childhood and like all those times when I'm like, fuck, I wish I had that person to go to in the moments when I needed them and I didn't.
It's funny, you kind of you grieve for the childhood you didn't have, or I'm kind of got this really interesting thing going on, particularly because of the therapy, which is like, and when I'm in that session, I kind of think I care deeply about that 7-8-year-old boy, and I knew what he was about to go through and how that changed his personality from an outgoing kid to an insular kid who was then bullied at school, who went from confident to kind of being just like a total geek, which actually there's nothing wrong with that. Massive fan of Star Wars and Star Trek, so I don't care about that. And then how that made him just an easy target for kind of bullies, and how he wouldn't hit back and he wouldn't stand up for himself for the longest time, or then how he would overcompensate with alcohol when he grew up as an adult, and how he would compensate for his behaviors. So I kind of really have a lot of compassion, and the other day I was basically in tears thinking about that boy. I've still yet to kind of bridge the gap between the fact that boy is me, if you know what I mean. I've got I've got the parents' almost compassion for the child, wanting to come somehow make it all right. Like, with my daughter, I'd be wrapping my arms around her and telling her that everything was all right. I can't quite do that with that kid. But there's a lot of compassion for him, which I think is a big step forward, at least. But it is kind of heartbreaking to think about the kid, because he didn't deserve what he was about to get, which is the same for so many, sadly, children out there as well. But yeah,
Scott, when you started going to therapy, I had this experience. I started going to therapy for about 4 years ago now, and have done almost 50 sessions now, and
what, do you want a Mentl Award or something?
I do, actually. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, Brian.
When Mentl comes to Canada, then we'll
absolutely.
Then you
Let's
can
make it happen. I mean, he was about to open up there, and we've turned this into a bit of a comedy stick. But,
that's a story of the show. But when I first went to therapy, I've told this story on the podcast a few times, but the short version is that I kept hearing people talk about therapy in these conversations that we would have about mental health, and a friend would open up to me and say that they were struggling with something, and I would recommend they go to therapy, but I had actually never been myself.
Yeah.
And so I thought, at the time I had benefits through work, and I figured, what, it wouldn't hurt to go and try out a session and see what it would be like. But to me, I was like, oh, I don't need this. Like, I have a level of self-awareness, and I feel like I'm in a good place, and it's just I'm just doing my research, not really needing to go do this thing. And then the first session, the therapist was asking me like a series of questions about my life, and I was telling her about it, and I told her about one experience in particular, and I remember she just looked at me and she said, "That sounds like it was really hard." And hearing somebody say that, I just it makes me like emotional thinking about it, but I just like broke down and started crying. I was like, that was really hard. And all of a sudden I realized like how much work there was to do. And one of the most beautiful things about going to therapy for me is like having some level of understanding, like piece by piece, of all of the things that I, would look back on my life, like experiences where I wasn't proud of the decisions I made and felt kind of guilty about things that I'd done, and have some sort of understanding of like where that came from, like what sort of made me able to do the things that I wasn't proud of, and have some sort of understanding of that has been really powerful. I'm curious for you, when you started going to therapy, did you know that you needed it for any particular reason?
Kind of. Yeah, kind. It was basically like follow your own advice, Scott, which was like what you were saying as well. Like I would tell everybody that therapy was maintenance, and actually it was kind of when I was, because I launched the awards last year. I did it basically almost single-handedly up until the very last few days, last couple of months. It was a big ask. There was a lot kind of riding on it, and I could just see me wobbling. And I wasn't burning out, and I wasn't falling over, but I'd learned enough from having so many conversations, basically on my podcast and reading and all the, being immersed in this world. I was like, yeah, there's something off, Scott. There's something off. And there had been a couple of times, and it's become more powerful, but there had been a couple of times where what had happened to me as a child had actually kind of come up again, basically because, and Anna wrote a really powerful piece for our website recently about her experience and surviving abuse. And there was just things that were beginning to trigger and resurface stuff. It had popped his head up maybe like 20 years before, and I'd slapped it back down and locked it away. So yeah, when I went in, I was like, look, I need a little bit of help here to kind of get me back on an even keel. I'm not feeling super confident. Some things a bit funky. And there's this. But yeah, the minute they opened the door, it was just like bang. And it's not to caution against therapy, but just to be realistic about therapy. It ain't easy. But it was, there was just like a whole bunch of stuff that kind of, you begin to piece together, you begin to put that jigsaw of yourself together piece by piece. And then I'm still at this position now, like it came quickly apparent, and I'm like, if we talk about core beliefs, my core belief, and to this day, my core belief still is that I'm completely and utterly worthless, which is something that both of my parents showed me when they threw me out in the streets and didn't take me back in. And that was as a teenager after the childhood that I'd had. But that still remains, I've been insecure, I had imposter syndrome all my life. I've been increasingly growing aware of that. But basically, even she showed me these are core beliefs, and she showed me just like the words "I am worthless," and I was in floods of tears. And I've got to that point now where, in theory, I know that I have worth. In theory, I know that I can. I've done some good things in my life, but it still feels very much like somebody else did them. If you know what I mean, like
Totally.
I know that I've done them, but I don't feel that I've done them.
Right.
Totally.
Right. Like the difference between like knowing and believing, it's like you can know something without really believing it.
Yeah. I just want to add to that point about like you cautioning about therapy. I totally get that. And as somebody who's quick to recommend therapy, I do want to emphasize that point in the sense that I think people who have been through trauma, you find that there are a group of people who are survivors of really acute or intense trauma who manage to get to a point in their life where they like find some sort of equilibrium, or they get to a place where like, they might be, metaphorically speaking, like standing on a really shaky foundation, but like there's a foundation that's holding them up. And going to therapy will definitely destroy that foundation. it will tear that down in a way that you are forced to try to build it back up, and that can be really challenging. And the plus side is that you could build a foundation back that's far stronger. The negative side of not doing it is that wobbly foundation is liable to break at any moment, and particularly in moments where you don't want it to, and it does. And yeah, I mean, that it's certainly something to consider when going to therapy.
Yeah, just to jump in there too, like I do feel like, I feel like that statement really rings true when I think about people like, Scott, like maybe your dad or like my father, right? Like people of a generation that have come prior to us, where this kind of conversation is like totally out to lunch. Like there's no fucking way you'll catch me ever talking about this stuff publicly, let alone privately. Yeah. Whereas like we have been entering this new era of being vulnerable, being open, being accepting to the challenges that we've been through, and being like willing to talk about them. There's still a ton of work to be done, but I do feel like, that maybe that will change more and more as we evolve and allow these types of conversations to happen more naturally, and just, allow them to be just things that are a part of our everyday existence, just sharing and speaking openly.
Well, that's
go ahead.
Sorry, I'm an interrupter, and my wife always tells me an interrupt and tells me to shut the fuck up. No, and that's kind of, honestly, that is our mission at Mentl, which is to try and just tackle the stigma, have open conversations, and just recognize that this should be as normal as about talking about a headache or a broken toe or
that's right.
It literally should be. And it doesn't matter about the generational thing. Like, the boomers and the Gen Xers, my dad, and lots of people of my generation, like really, really struggle to talk about this. And they'll look at, if we talk about the world of work, they'll look at Gen Z and roll their eyes and go, oh, they're so entitled. And then go, well, we were miserable, they should be miserable too. But then it's like, oh, it was character building. No, it wasn't. It was just fucking awful.
Yeah.
And it still is. And actually, when you look at all the statistics and the research around the world, the C-suite and managers have more negative experiences, both in the workplace and as a percentage of a workforce population, they want to leave their jobs and find a better work-life balance more than the younger generations, because they're miserable, but they can't even talk about it because to talk about it's weak. I mean, I feel particularly, and again, if we talk about guys my age in C-suite positions, I really feel for them, because they've got so many responsibilities. They've got kids, they've got school fees, they've got mortgage payments, they've got responsibility to the P&L at work, they've got responsibility to their team, they've got responsibility to their chairman, they've got responsibility to the board. And then but where's their responsibility to themselves?
Yeah, yeah.
And if they break, then everything else falls down. So there's just a lot. And these days, with the acceleration, like my generation will look at your generation or the Gen Z generation and go, they're so entitled. Oh, they're so entitled. And it's like, look at the pace of the world today. Just look at the pace, like the world I grew up in. The most sophisticated piece of technology I had when I started, when I was 16 years old, was a fax machine. Didn't have email. We basically didn't even have, it wasn't quite typewriters, but we had the first PCs, and like no email, no social media, WhatsApp. I fucking hate WhatsApp. Honestly, it's like, the Terminator, where they try to go back to Skynet and blow it up before it ruins the world. If I could go back, I would blow up WhatsApp headquarters. Fucking WhatsApp group. Sorry, my French is getting a little bit tasty. But but that blending of work and work in your home life, and there's just no barrier now. And how everyone's entitled just to reach into your private time and try and get you to do stuff. It's the world that our kids are growing up in, compared to, I had time, and I had time as well to get used to every technological shift.
Oh my God. It's so rapid now. There's no
email,
there is no
the
time.
Internet came in, and then email came in, and then eventually at some point Facebook came in, and then kind of WhatsApp came in, and now we've got kids walking into the world of work these days. Like GDP, I think, since my since I worked, when I entered the world of work to what the kids are getting at, it's like accelerated 4 or 5 times, and now we've got AI, and it's like,
Yeah. Good luck.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's really interesting though that you bring that up, because I was having dinner with some friends last night, and we were talking about how fucked up it is that we work 5 days a week and have 2 days as a vacation. We're just coming off a long weekend here. It was Canada Day yesterday, and
congratulations.
And thank you. and the 3-day weekend is great, but it is crazy that we just sort of decided that we're going to work 5 days a week and then have 2 days off. But the crazy thing is like, I've noticed this, like, you see those articles on LinkedIn about like such and such company is testing out a 4-day work week. But the thing is it feels like it's kind of bullshit, because we really have 7-day work weeks now, and we pretend like they're 5 days a week, because most people, like you said, have their phones with WhatsApp, with their emails. Yeah. Even when they're quote unquote shut off, they're actually still on. And it is important to acknowledge that we are connected more than ever, and that means that we're switched on more than ever. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, so that we can try to. Johan Hari's book Stolen Focus is really a lot about this, but highly recommend checking that out.
Last week in the news, Greece are implementing a 6-day work week. Just a little tidbit.
I read that. I read that. I was like, well done.
I was like,
I guess there's a degree of, you could say there's a degree of honesty there, but I'm not entirely sure that's going to attract a lot of talent to Greece.
No joke. Literally hit the news last week. Yeah.
Whereas the UK did do a massive study into the 4-day work week, but it was interesting because it was very fluid. So there wasn't just prescribed you will work from 9 till 5. Organizations could create that 4-day work week any way they wanted to.
Sure.
And within that, there was a commitment to putting in place boundaries, which is the one thing that or any organization kind of needs to embrace, is putting boundaries. If you're a manager, don't send an email at the weekend saying, don't read this till Monday, because of course they're going to fucking read it.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
But the results from that 4-day week were quite impressive. Again, it was reduced absenteeism, reduced presenteeism, which is more expensive than absenteeism, increased talent retention, increased productivity, increased profitability. Like 20%, I want to say, of the organizations, and it was around 100 organizations and major organizations that embraced it, said it was there to stay. They were not going to go back to a 5-day week. 15% of the people that were on that program said you couldn't pay them enough to go back to a 5-day week.
Right.
And 85% of the organizations that embraced it kept it. Some didn't say that they would do it forever, but
worth investigating.
And like here in the UAE, like we have a 4.5-day work week. The UAE is one of the first countries to actually abandon officially, as a nation, the concept of the 5-day work week. They're a 4.5-day work week, and they've been at Davos talking about how they've seen all those same productivity gains in absenteeism and presenteeism. If you want to know who's to blame for the 5-day work week, it's Henry Ford. He brought it in 100 years ago. And when he brought it in, it was supposed to be a way of actually normalizing people's lives and giving them some quality time with their family, because obviously there wasn't WhatsApp and there wasn't this, work-life blend then. So when people left the factory, that meant they had 2 full days off with their family.
That's
and
right.
when they left the factory at 5 o'clock or whatever, they left the family. And even when he said that 100 years ago, he went, I'm not saying this has to be forever. We're just doing this now. It's going to evolve. But obviously it hasn't evolved, because there's a lot of organizations out there that still feel like Victorian steel mills.
Yeah.
I can tell you that if I worked, if I had 5 days a week off and went in to work 2 days a week, if we switched that, I would be so excited to come to work. It would totally change. And look, I
like that even seems
not enough.
Yeah, no, like that seems like that seems too far on the other spectrum.
Right.
To the degree
mean.
where degree where I'd be like, oh man, 5 days.
Right.
It's like you go to Vegas. You don't want to go to Vegas for more than 3 days. You know, you're there
Too
for
much of a
4
good thing.
You're there for 4 days. You're like, oh my God, get me out of here.
Totally.
It would be.
That's
I
what
feel
I
like
mean.
it'd
I'd
be the
be
same.
so
Yes.
excited to get
you'd
to
be
work.
Like, thank God I'm back to work.
But it is interesting how that switches your.
I do want to before we come up to time. There's something that I've been just so curious to talk to you about, Scott. Is the as an expat living in the UAE, and especially someone who's focused so heavily on trying to advocate for and speak openly about mental health and founding Mentl itself. What have your observations been from like a cultural standpoint surrounding the ways in which folks from the UAE speak or do not speak about mental health? Like what's the temperature over there around these types of conversations that we're having right here?
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely fascinating because, and I think COVID really did change things to a large degree. But with there's like a 2-speed conversation happening here with the UAE, and like some of the judges in my Mentl Awards this year, we've got Dubai Health Authority, we've got amazing woman who was the person that treated Adil, Dr. Nahida. I'm sure he spoke about her on the podcast, but about her on the podcast. She's the chief medical officer of Sakina, which is the UAE sort of mental health project. We've got Dubai Science Park again. We've got, but the government's message over and over again is more thriving, and they have revamped their mental health law in the last year. They've revamped a lot of things actually in terms of even from the expat experience, because companies used to be able to rule our lives with fear because our existence in the UAE was very much linked to our visa. Sure. And so they could literally go, you have to do as I tell you, otherwise you're sacked, and then you have to leave the UAE, your children have to leave their school, you lose all your benefits. And the government's been changing that. Now we have 5-year visas, we have 10-year visas, we have what we call our gratuity, which is a bit like the pension system. It used to be controlled and withheld by employees. That's been taken off them. So the government's message to the private sector is very much more well-being, please. This is the direction of travel. There's a government-backed, parent-friendly label, which we've worked with a few times. Really good organisation, which basically goes in and tries to teach family-friendly policies to organisations. So there's a lot of education there. They have been catching up. I mean, they launched a massive strategy about 5 years ago, and they kind of went around the world to look at the best practice all around the world. And Canada was one of the places actually they looked at. Canada, something Australia, some in Scandinavia, some aspects of strategy in the Netherlands, and then Canada basically went, look, we want the best of everything, and they're ramping that up and rolling that out. And the new mental health law, like mental health, the definition of mental health in the UAE up until a couple of years ago used to be you're ill. It would be you're crazy. Do you know, if you know what I mean? Like it would be you have to go to a psychiatric clinic and be medicated. Now it's that nuanced awareness that actually mental health means there's so many different factors, societal, educational, financial, the workplace, so many different elements to it. So it is kind of like the World Health Organization definition of mental health now. Where the major problem exists is still the stigma, which there are more and more people, brave people like Adil, who are willing to speak up. We're going to speak up, and the government backs us when we speak up on this. It's the private sector, because the private sector out here has still been. There are some really good players, and we work with some really good players, but there is just it was an easy lever for people to pull. We've got organisations, and I know it's not the same. It's the same across the GCC, but it's the same across many parts of America. It's the same probably in Greece, I would imagine. We're looking forward to Greece, but that hierarchical command and control, do as you're told. If I say jump, how high? And creating that, or not creating psychologically safe spaces where people feel empowered and heard. It just creates a lot of anxiety in the world. We spend a third of our lives in the workplace. So yeah, as an expat out here, it's really, really. Again, there was a piece of research. Signa Healthcare do a piece every year, and in the UAE, like overall well-being is world leading, And I will say there are some aspects to that in which, you know, we've got a lot of sunshine, where we've got a lot of amazing opportunities. Crime is virtually non-existent. You're free from crime, which as a parent, your kids are safe. Really, really counts for a lot. But then as soon as you look at the world of work, burnout is globally one of the leaders in the world. You know, 99% of people who responded to the survey were struggling from burnout. 90% of people said they were always on. 90% of people said they were suffering from stress. So there's a price to be paid for the overall position. And here, like, the government knows, and they know that there is no long-term benefit to people burning out and buggering off. So they are trying to change it. But anyone who works in this part of the world will tell you, like, Dubai is an ambitious city, particularly. The UAE is ambitious. It's on nation building. It's the same in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is on a massive nation building project. So there's a lot of ambition, which means there's a lot of expectation, which means there's a lot of long hours, which means there's a lot of pressure. And that's not easy.
I think something that I've always felt about Dubai in particular is that they do strive to be better all the time. And so I'm not surprised to hear you talk about the way that the government has prioritized these things. And then also highlighting the fact that, you know, stigma still exists. So even though you can have leaders, particularly in the government, as you mentioned, there's still a lot of work to do in the private sector as well. But it is like, do you find that like the general population-based stigma around mental health is like the thing that is sort of slow to catch up?
Yeah, and it's going to be as well because, you know, we're importing a lot of stigma from a lot of different parts. Like, we could say that, I'm Western, I'm from Britain. You look at Britain, is the mental health conversation more advanced than it's been here? Yeah, but man, you know, our mental health services are in the absolute toilet. They're an absolute disgrace. This place, at least, you know, when they decide that something's important and it's a priority, then they build a strategy and they build a vision and they can stick to it because they don't have separate governments flip-flopping every 3 or 4 years, and it no longer becomes a priority. But also we've got it's such a melting pot of different cultures. So we've got the Arabic culture, we've got Eastern Europeans, and my wife's Lithuanian, and the guys back in Lithuania, the same as my dad. You know, they can't until they've got 3 bottles of vodka down them. They can barely, you know, they can't open up at all. You know, and it's you then got, you know, so many people coming from Pakistan and India. You know, the Asian population are a big part of the workforce here as well, and there's massive stigma back there as well, back in their home country. So yeah, we're importing a whole bunch of stigmas from around the world into one place, where everyone here, to start with, the first thing everyone wants to do is keep their job. You know, it is that pressure to just make the money, keep the job. So in a way, it's a little harder as well to get that conversation started, because you're not as secure, traditionally as well, you weren't as secure as, you know, in the UK, we've got perhaps too much of a benefits culture, but you don't get kicked out of the country if you lose your job. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I guess the priority for everybody that comes here first is like, just make a success of the work thing first, and then try and deal with everything after, which is kind of like, and every study we see, you know, like, actually take care of the well-being thing first, take care of yourself first, and then everything else will follow. Andy Fieldhouse will always, your old mate Andy Fieldhouse will quote one of the famous American football managers who used to talk about the result will take care of itself. You know, the Mentl Awards,
the 2024 Mentl Awards, as of recording this, happened last week, correct?
The nominations are open.
We opened the nominations for this year, so they'll take place. They'll take place in November. So we launched them last year. Just for the UAE, 70 different organisations, multinationals entered. 200 people in the room. It was a real celebration, as I say, of compassion and kindness, and just organisations and individuals that were kind of doing the right thing. And we just, we're not at excellent yet, but we wanted to kind of show what good looks like, and then we can keep every year get better. This year they're open to the entire GCC, so Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, and we've got more judges as well this year. It's totally independent. Like we have this Paralympians, adventurers, CEOs, government health officials. We've got Dubai Health Authority. We've got the government, in there. So yeah, it's exciting. I think it's going to be interesting to see the response this year.
Yeah,
that's awesome, Scott. I just want to say too, like knowing how keen the UAE government is to like when people advocate for things and they see that things are important, they do really make an effort to make things better. And so, no doubt, like the work that you're doing with that is making a huge difference. So incredibly commendable.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks like from the footage and stuff from last year's awards ceremony, it looks like just an absolute an amazing time, a really well put together event. How are you feeling about November? Like how you feeling about this upcoming?
I can say organizing Mentl Health Awards are not good for your mental health.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But I'm super excited again, like, and I can't wait because my daughter's so keen to go back. It just, the energy, the vibe, the positivity, the bringing people together. Last year was everything that I had in my head. I wanted it to be glamorous, and actually, there was one of the judges who's, again, the Dr. Nahida said, "You've made mental health look glamorous." And it was like, that's what I wanted to do. Like, I don't want it to be shoved into the corner. I want this to look every bit as good as a black tie fashion gala, because actually we need to be up. The reason why I call, mental is because we do what we say on the tin. We want to be upfront and honest about it. We want to shove it in people's face to a large degree. That and fluffybrainsparkles.com was taken, so we had to go. So yeah, no, I'm stoked. I can't wait. It's going to be really interesting as well to see what's happening, what stories are out there. Adil and Anna were both inspirations. Both beautiful human beings, both incredibly courageous, and they just they make you want to do it all over again. And to see the difference it's made, and actually there were organisations that won it, and there were individuals that won the awards, and to actually see that they counted and they've made a meaningful difference to some people's lives was, again, I'm close to being able to own that one. Scott did that. Did he? Did he really? Nah, but yeah, and to see my daughter there, and for her to see that, and if she can grow up learning that's what she should expect. Yeah. That's what our kids should expect. That actually workplaces and organizations where you can expect to be treated with dignity.
Well, I mean, we're just so grateful that you're doing this, because again, like, if it wasn't for Mentl, we probably wouldn't have been put in touch and have been able to meet and hear from such incredible people like Adil, and yourself, and like I'm so excited for where this is going to go and what you guys plan to do over the next few years.
Let me throw the love back your way though as well, because you guys have been doing this a lot longer than me. So I mean, just the fact that we're having these conversations and having more of these conversations about mental health, like, super grateful for people like you out there that literally just creating platforms where people can talk about it.
Well, I mean, how can people find you? You've mentioned a couple times you guys have a podcast. How can people stay up to date with the work that you are doing? If they are interested, who knows, maybe there's someone from the UAE listening right now isn't familiar with the Mentl Awards. How can people get involved?
We've got a content hub. So we've got a website called mentl.space, mentl.space, SPACE. All the details of the awards are on there as well. Mentl, mentl awards.com. And the podcast as well is called Mentl Space, The Mentl Space. Again, with no A, we just couldn't afford the A, so mentl space. And that's on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, all the usual podcast places. We've got a YouTube channel as well for Mentl. I'm on TikTok. I've got about 15 subscribers. Not much more than that. I'm not a very good dancer, so I'm not sure that one's
keep
ever going to
dancing.
work.
You dance your little buns off. Those followers will come.
Yeah, literally, those followers will not. They will run. They will run the opposite way. But yeah, no, so we're everywhere. Thanks.
All right. Well, just you and I, Bri, for this wrap up after that lovely conversation with our friend Scott.
Yeah.
And Scott's living in Dubai. You've been to Dubai.
I have.
You've been on the outskirts of Dubai.
I have, yeah.
Now, I've never been, but knowing that you've been there and having seen some photos and knowing a little bit about the world, the outskirts of Dubai, kind of deserty, right?
There's some desert, yeah.
Some desert out there. Okay, well, I thought, why not prep some desert stories?
Great.
And oddly enough, there just so happens to be a desert story that is breaking news.
Wow.
It's coming at you live right here on Sickboy Podcast. Breaking news.
Like a current event.
Current event happening right now.
Okay.
We can't get to it until the stinger is done.
It's a long stinger.
Breaking news.
It's a long stinger.
It's long. All right. So breaking news. Well, man, this sucks. This sucks, dude. I feel bad. So we're gonna take a moment to talk about
old people burning. It's kind of messed up.
Oh no.
We're gonna talk about some old people burning. Not that old though. He's 42. So there was a Belgian tourist, okay, and he suffered what is called full thickness burns. Have you ever heard of full thickness burns?
I have not, but it sounds not good.
So I didn't either until I read it in this story. I had to look it up. Full thickness burn, I believe, is another word for third degree burn.
Right. That makes sense because like the degree at which you're burnt depends on like the layer of skin or depth that it goes. Right. So like I when you said full thickness, I was going to guess that it might be a third degree burn.
Yeah, so a third degree burn, also called full thickness burns,
okay,
injure all the layers of the skin as well as the fatty tissue beneath them. They are what is considered to be a serious burn and can affect the skin's ability to grow back. So this Belgian tourist suffered third degree full thickness burns on his feet, all through the bottoms of his feet. Guess what he was up to?
walking in the desert.
He was walking in the desert.
Why?
On a visit to Death Valley National Park over the weekend. According to National Park Services, the 42-year-old man was taking a walk on the sand dunes when he lost his flip-flops. The air temperature at the time, officials said, was around 123 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. If that was Celsius, he would be
Is that like
a
50?
cooked dish. And the ground temperature would have been, quote, much hotter. So this guy's going for a little walk in the dunes and
Barefoot on an oven.
that's the noise I would have made.
Yeah.
So a Death Valley National Park ranger told the LA Times that the ground temperature can reach 170 to 180 degrees and has even been known to get as high as 200 degrees.
Enough to like cook an egg on.
You can cook at 200 degrees. Yeah. 200 degrees Fahrenheit.
You can cook is he Belgium? Did you say?
He was Belgian, yeah.
Belgian feet. You can cook Belgian feet at that temperature.
Probably tastes like a waffle.
Yeah.
So that guy got really, really, really burned. Now, he's 42. So when I first started reading this and I didn't know his age, I was thinking maybe this was like a sort of get it for the gram type thing.
Yeah.
Because like I've seen some photos that your brother is taking out in the dunes, and some of those photos are for the gram. Like,
and you
they're pretty amazing.
You don't want flip flops in
No.
the photos. You want
No.
like aesthetically, you want to look like you're part of the environment.
Yeah. I actually have something prepped here because I feel like this guy thinks he's doing like something like this. You know?
Oh yeah.
So for folks that are just listening, we're watching a stock footage of a fashionable gentleman walking through the desert.
I must say though, that fashionable gentleman is wearing proper feet attire.
He's also wearing a full length coat.
Yeah,
You wouldn't
maybe
wanna
that's
be
a bit
wearing that.
warm. You're
Yeah.
a bit warm.
So, but what he ended up getting was this. This was the shot of he was trying to get a shot.
Oh my god. We're looking at a man on fire.
It's what they call in the industry as a full burn, as a stuntman on
Wow.
fire from head to toe.
If I didn't know that was a stuntman,
That
I
was
would have
stuntman.
been sure
You
that we
would've
couldn't
thought
show
that.
that on YouTube.
Yeah, I pulled that from like rotten.com or something.
Yeah.
Just a guy at a bar getting just lit on fire.
I really want to know how this guy lost his flip-flops.
Well,
while
I mean, if
walking.
you're walking in flip-flops in sand, I can see it pretty easily losing a flip-flop.
Can you though? They don't
Yeah.
just like disappear off the bottom of your feet into like sand isn't like water where it, like
Yeah.
you're
I don't know what Belgians flip-flops look like.
right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They actually just don't have any strap. To
Maybe
keep
they're
them on.
made of sugar, you know? Like and this
Yeah.
guy's the sweat on his feet just like they just
burned
know,
off.
well, I was going to say
Disintegrated?
just, like melted away.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
So the skin was fully melted off of his foot. Park Ranger Gia Ponce told the Times. The man's family called for help, and other park visitors came to his aid to carry him to the nearby parking lot to await paramedics. Now, here's the fucking crazy part. Officials said he suffered full thickness burns on his feet and was in significant pain. Again, just on the sidelines.
It burns. Oh. No, I don't like it.
That's The Exorcist. They said due to the extreme heat in the area, a helicopter was unable to fly in to safely to take him out.
Helicopters can't fly in heat like that?
Yeah, I guess so. So hot that not only are your feet going to burn full thick.
Feels like there's so many variables in this story that were like
guy had a
that
bad
could have
day.
been mitigated. Like
Got a bad
like
day.
okay, so for example, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say he was wearing sugar-based flip-flops
Yes.
that melted because of the sweat. Like I would just take my pants off, my shorts off, and like put those under my feet.
Yeah.
You know, like there's so many things that I feel like you could do.
I'm curious about like, you know, is this a case of, okay, let's say the flip-flop comes off. How much time between walking your feet on that sand to, from the moment you start to walk in on barefoot sand to the moment where you go, uh-oh.
Full thickness burn.
Well, not even full thickness burn. I'm saying like,
Yeah, you
this is
realize
hurting and this
it's
isn't going to
bad.
go away now.
Yeah.
This is only going to get worse.
Yeah.
Do you think it's like 2 or 3 steps? Or do you think this guy was like, oh, whoopsie, fuck, my sandal just snapped off, right? Like a thong sandal snapped.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
well, you're fucked. Like
Yeah.
that's gone. That one
Yeah.
foot is not going to have a sandal. So do you think he was like, all right, well, I'll just one sandal it, I'll hook it in there and walked for like 5 minutes and got fucked? Or do you think it was like, you know, was this guy like, oh, I walked on coals. I love, what's his name? The fucking dude that writes those books that tells you how to be a better version of yourself.
Wim Hof.
No, the other guy, big giant fucking dude, the self-help guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Big Cro-Magnon looking man. What the fuck? What's his name?
I can't. I don't know.
Anyway, he gets people to walk on coals, hot coals.
Yeah.
Walking on hot coals, I've done that. Whatever.
And that's how he did it.
Well, I don't know. I'm guessing that's what would have went through his head.
Well,
maybe,
because you
know?
could
but like how quick until he goes, fuck, this isn't like the hot coals.
Well, that's the thing. So you can like again another easy way to mitigate this. I feel if you know that it's happening, if you know that the burn is happening. So have you ever been on like hot beach sand?
Oh yeah, dude.
And
fucking hurts.
and it's hot, but you just like take your feet and you like shuffle them a little bit so they
Yeah.
go under that surface
Yeah.
layer of sand that's like really hot into the cool sand underneath.
Yeah. I don't think you can do that in Death Valley.
I think you can.
This is what you're gonna hear, Bri, when you try that.
Oh no. This is
And
what
you're
he
gonna
heard.
hear that, and you're also gonna hear. It's too hot. We can't land. I'm so sorry. And then they're gonna fly away.
And then you get your
Because
full
here's the
thickness
thing: you're
burns.
talking about the beach, right? That sand under the beach sand. You're right next to the water. There's got to be like there's water underneath all that. There's like you're
don't know
getting
about that.
damp sand.
I
You're getting
don't-
damp
I
sand. You
don't
are.
know.
Have you ever dug at the beach? When you dig
Yes,
at the beach,
but
you
even
just
at
hit water.
even
Death Valley, dude, is
even way
nothing.
back from
There's
like the
nothing.
damp sand, even if you shuffle under a little bit.
Well, I don't know.
It's
You're the
cool.
one who'd been to Dubai out in the desert. Is it like that? I don't know. I don't think so.
I can't say that I've experimented with it because it feels maybe a little bit more dangerous.
Well, I just went to Death Valley, nps.gov, the National Parks website, National Park Service. And the Death Valley, there's an alert in effect right now. If you're in Death Valley right now and you're listening to this podcast, first of all, make sure you're not wearing fucking thong flip-flops. Second of all, there's an extreme summer heat warning right now. You can expect temperatures as high as 130 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 54 degrees Celsius. Minimize time outside. Do not hike after 10 a.m. is what they say. And they also say drink plenty of water.
I want to know how far
it's
into
the
the
driest,
desert
hottest, lowest national park. I think that heat is full thickness heat that goes into the sand.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're digging your feet in, you're actually just sticking your feet into dry boiling water.
Do we know anything else about how like did he have to walk
He's
out?
dead.
Was he traveling?
He died.
No, he didn't. No.
No. So the helicopter couldn't land. Instead, a ground ambulance rushed to the man to a higher elevation where temperatures were slightly cooler, still around 109 degrees, which allowed for a helicopter to land and fly him to Las Vegas Hospital. Officials urge visitors to take necessary precautions when exploring Death Valley, which is the driest, lowest, and hottest place in all of the national parks in America. But here's the thing. This is not a unique story. This shit happens. So here's a few other incidences where people have unexpectedly gotten burned while being a tourist. There was a Great Wall of China incident in 2015. A tourist visiting the Great Wall of China suffered severe burns on their feet. The temperature was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the stone steps of the wall absorbed so much heat that that walking barefoot or in thin-soled shoes became hazardous. And the tourist wearing flip-flops, there's your fucking red flag right there, ended up with second-degree burns after losing their shoe.
They must have been
Belgian. They must have been Belgian
all the time.
They must have been Belgian.
Belgian shoes that just melted away.
Those shoes just don't last. Those Belgian flip-flops. Okay, this one's fucked. This one sucks. A little bit different, and I could understand this one a little bit more than the flip-flops, but also not smart. Hot springs mishap in Yellowstone.
Ooh, yeah.
Now, there's been deaths. This one in particular is not a death, but there have been deaths. Yellowstone National Park in the U.S. is famous for its geothermal features, including hot springs and geysers. In 2016, a visitor strayed off from the designated path and fell into a hot spring.
Oh, my God.
The boiling water caused third-degree burns all over their body. And the park has strict guidelines about staying on paths to avoid such accidents. But there was a case not too long ago of a father with his daughter. Father fell into a geyser.
No.
Yeah.
And died?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You're falling into a pit, and at the bottom of that pit is a fucking bubbling cauldron.
Full thickness burns.
Full thickness witch burns. Like,
for sure.
And then it goes and like just shoot your dead red hot flaming body just out of the, I don't know if it would do that, but it is like a blowhole.
And he landed in front of his daughter's feet.
That's trauma. Beach sand burns in Florida. During a particularly hot summer in 2018, a woman visiting the beach in Florida suffered severe burns on her feet.
Should have shimmied.
Yep. See, it would have worked there, I think. This one sucks. Hot pavement in Phoenix. 2019, a Phoenix man experienced severe burns after collapsing on a sidewalk.
No, just fell down on it.
Fell down. The asphalt reached temperatures of over 160 degrees. And the man became unconscious for a brief period and suffered third-degree burns from the pavement.
Did he trip on his flip-flops? Because
they didn't say.
They didn't say. There's a common thread here.
Yeah.
At least for some of them.
What's a Phoenician Arizonian doing wearing Belgian flip-flops?
I don't know.
Is that what you call people from Phoenix? Phoenicians?
Yeah.
And then there's another one here. This one sucks. A worker installing solar panels on a rooftop in Nevada in a heat wave in 2021 suffered burns when the panels, which can absorb heat and retain heat, reached temperatures of 180 degrees Fahrenheit.
And he was carrying them on his back.
He was wearing gloves, and the intense heat caused second-degree burns on his hands and his arms.
Through his gloves?
Yeah, that's how fucking hot. Yeah.
Wow.
So I guess the moral to this story, folks, is summer's hot, and global warming, which is not even real, but I mean, whatever, global warning.
Climate change.
Climate change. It's only going to get worse, according to the government.
Global elites.
Yeah, the global elites, the cabal. So A, don't leave your kids locked up in a car. B, don't put your dog in a car unless you're in it and the AC's on. C, don't wear flip-flops made from Belgium. And C, or D, stop being a tourist in the
Hot places.
Go to cold
Yeah.
places. This won't happen to you
Yes.
if you go to cold places.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't, like, the cold doesn't hurt you as much as the heat does.
No. Yeah.
We all know this. Also, I just want to say a PSA here. You should just be
By the
aware.
way, this is what a 3rd-degree burn looks like.
Whoa. Oh, that does not look fun. You should also know that your little puppy's paws are
at the
very
beach.
sensitive,
Very
to
much
heat
at the
too.
beach.
So be careful.
Yeah.
If
Be very
you
careful
wouldn't
at the
walk on
beach.
it on bare feet,
Yeah.
don't make your dog walk on
And
it.
the poor thing, that's how they cool down.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, beach is actually a horrible place for a dog,
See,
honest to God.
Rupert digs into the
unless
sand.
if it's a hot day, don't fucking take your dog to the beach.
Or he goes
bad,
swim.
That's a bad idea.
Rupert's a big swimmer.
Yeah. But like on a blistering hot day,
Yeah,
I don't
no,
do it.
no.
I don't take my dog to the beach on a fucking blistering hot day.
Yeah, no.
That's a bad
definitely not.
idea.
Because they can't just be in the water the entire time.
No, of course.
And when they're not in the water, they're
They're
on the
literally
sand.
they're like putting the only way they can cool off in the hot.
They shimmy.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Scott. Fucking Scott, you're the best.
Scott is the best.
Folks, if you wanna continue to support the podcast, thank you so much for listening up to this point in the first place. You can come on over to our Discord, fun little community. All the links to the Discord channel. It's totally free. You can just come over and just become a hangout in the Discord type person. So you can just click the link in the show notes of this episode or all the episodes prior to this. And if you want to support the podcast further, leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Because we'd love to see it.
You can comment on Spotify now.
Yeah,
too.
that's kind of cool. You should do that.
Yeah.
Who knows if we'll see it, but maybe we will.
We will. We'll look for it.
Yeah. And then, if you want to be on the show or you have an idea for a guest, actually, you know what? Big shout out to whoever it was years ago that told us that they would love to see Johan Hari on the podcast. That person, whoever sent us that email, I forget now. Well, we ended up getting him on the show because of that email. I reached out to Johan and ended up having him on the show.
And it helps to like bring the receipts to him too and be like,
That's right.
hey, somebody
we
told us we should
that's
do
right,
this.
Yeah. So if you have a guest in mind that you think would be great, or you yourself you think you'd be a great guest, let us know. You can come on over to our website, sickboypodcast.com, and there's links for all that shit there.
Thanks, as always, to the folks who helped make this show happen. A huge shout out to Taylor, who's not with us right now, to Donovan Morgan for the amazing sound design, to Jeff Lonis, our manager. We couldn't do it without you guys.
That is it for this week.
I'm Brian.
I'm Jeremy, and this is Sickboy.